If you've been wondering how you can get started making your own games on Hytopia, this video is for you. If you don't know me, my name is Ash, and I've been making games on Hytopia for a while, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get set up to get started making games as well. Big shout out to Hytopia for sponsoring this video, and with all of that said, let's get started. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to dev.hytopia.com, and this is the website that has all of the development docs for Hytopia, so you definitely want to become familiar with it, learn how to navigate it, all the different sections that are there. But for today, we're just going to be focused on the getting started section. And this homepage is just like a little intro to Hytopia, and then we're just going to click on this initial setup link at the top, and that's going to get us to where we need to be. So right away on this page, you'll see a lot of steps, and it might look intimidating at first, but don't worry, we're going to go through them step by step, and it's actually pretty easy. They're recommending right at the top here that you join the developer Discord. I definitely agree. It's a great place to be, especially when you're learning. Everyone's really friendly and you can get questions answered easily. And also there's a help bot in there that can help you when you're stuck as well. So definitely join that, but let's move on to our very first step, which is to install Cursor. So we're just going to click this link. And when you do, you can see this button in the top right that says download. And there's also one here, and you can just hit download. It's worth noting that Cursor, I think they do have a free plan. I don't know what the limitations are, to be honest, anymore, because they change it a lot. I highly recommend the Pro $20 a month plan if you're planning on doing any sort of heavy lifting with Cursor. It's definitely worth it. You might be able to get away with some stuff on the free plan though, so you can just make that decision yourself. So I'm just going to open my file that we just downloaded, and I'm going to accept the terms of the agreement. I'm going to hit next. I do like to create desktop icons. You might not, but I'm going to create a desktop icon. I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to hit install. Okay, and it's done, and you can, check the box to launch Cursor. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to hit finish. So now that that's done, we can go back to the dev website and we can do the next step, which is to install Node.js. If you don't know, Hytopia is built on JavaScript, and Node.js is required to make everything work. So we're just going to click this link that they've got here, and it's how you download it. So for me, I'm running a Windows machine, 64-bit. If you're on something different, you can obviously change it. It probably automatically changes, but if it doesn't for some reason, you can always change it. And I'm gonna download the Windows installer. And now that that's done, I'm gonna click that to open it. And it says it's an executable file. Are you sure you wanna do it? And obviously this one's safe, so we're gonna hit okay. And we're gonna go through this setup wizard now. Hit next. I'm going to accept the terms of the agreement. It's going to install it in my C drive here. I'm going to hit next. All of the defaults are fine. It's asking if you want to automatically install necessary tools, and I'm going to say yes. And then I'm going to hit install. Great. And it says Node.js has been successfully installed, and I'm going to hit finish. Okay, and now it's automatically popped up this terminal and is explaining it needs to install some other stuff, and you can press any key to continue. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And it's giving me more information. I'm going to press any key again, and it's going to start installing it. Okay, and it's sent, and it just says type enter to exit. So I'll type enter, and that's it. Node.js has been installed with everything that it needs to run. And then the next thing we need to do, going back to the dev docs, is to install the Hytopia CLI, which is the command line interface. This is required for Hytopia game development. It's where all of our command lines come from for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this line right here, and then I'm going to open up my terminal. I've got mine pinned down here, but if you don't, you can just go to your search bar and write terminal and find it that way. And I'm gonna paste in that command line that I just copied, and I'm gonna hit enter. Okay, and it says added 332 packages, and that step is done. All right, so with that step complete, we've installed Cursor, we've installed Node.js, and we've installed the Hytopia CLI. So we have everything installed on our machine that we need to start creating games. And the next step is just to start a new project. Now, if we scroll back down in the dev docs to step 3, it says create and initialize your project. You can definitely do it like this, but I'm going to do it a different way just to talk a little bit about like folder and file structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my file explorer, and I'm going to go to my E drive, which is where I keep all my Hytopia stuff. And I highly recommend having some place on your computer where you can keep all of your projects organized. So for me, that's my E drive. I have a Hytopia folder, and then I have a folder for my games here. In this case, since this is a tutorial, I also have a folder for my tutorial projects. So I'm going to open that folder. You're going to want to open whatever folder you have on your computer that's going to hold all of your games. And what I'm going to do once I'm in this folder is I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it, in my case, Getting Started Guide. You're going to want to name this whatever you want to name your first game, or ideally just like test game or something like that. And the reason we're doing this is because every Hytopia game needs its own root folder. So this is the root folder that we've just created. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open it inside of Cursor. So I'm going to open Cursor. And your cursor will look something like this when you open it up. It might make you like log into your account first. So do that if it asks you to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open a project, which is basically just opening a folder. If you don't see this for some reason, you can always go to File, Open Folder. And then I'm going to find the folder that I just created. The Getting Started Guide folder. For you would be whatever the one you just made is. And I'm going to hit Select Folder. And now it's open inside of Cursor. It doesn't look like much right now because it's empty. It's an empty folder, but you can see on this left-hand side like a little toggle for the root folder that we created. If you've never been inside of Cursor, this might look a little bit weird to get started, but it'll make more sense as we go. For now, the only thing I want you to do is go to Terminal, New Terminal. And when you do that, it's going to open this terminal up at the bottom, and it's already located you inside of the folder you just made. So you can see your complete like file path right here, and you can see I'm in Tutorial Projects, Getting Started Guide. All right, so now that that's done, let's go back to the dev website and let's just talk about this step 3 a little bit. All of these first commands is basically that process we just did of creating a new folder for our project. So we already did these steps. The only step in here that we have left is this Hytopia init. And this is what initializes your Hytopia project. So I'm going to copy that command and I'm going to go back into Cursor and I'm going to paste it in this terminal that we opened at the bottom, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, and it's done initializing the project. And then down here at the bottom, it has a question for us, and it says, would you like to initialize the Hytopia MCP for this project? And then it says y/n. We're going to hit Y for yes and hit enter. And then it says Hytopia MCP setup. Please select your code editor. We're in Cursor, so we're going to put number 1. And then we're going to hit enter. And then right here at the bottom, it says new MCP server detected. And then we're going to enable it. And we'll talk about why we did all that in a minute, but it's important that you do those steps. All right, so really fast, you'll notice that we've added a lot of stuff now on the left side of our window, and I want to show you what that's doing. So inside of that Getting Started Guide folder that we created, if you go inside now, remember it was empty before, and now it's got all of this stuff inside. And this is what we did when we initialized the Hytopia project. It brought in all of these things. So the first thing is the .cursor folder. This is our cursor rules for the MCP. And this is just the AI helper for Hytopia, and we'll talk about that more in a minute, like I said. The next thing you'll see is the assets folder, which is a lot of Hytopia assets. So you have some music here, sound effects, a bunch of different textures, icons, a maps folder, a bunch of different types of models, including the player model, particles, skyboxes, etc. So it brought in all of these different assets that you can use to start. It brought in this node modules folder, which you don't need to worry about. This is just stuff that it needs to run. There's these 3 JSON files that you can also ignore for now. And then the main file that we're concerned with is this index.ts file, which is the entry point for your game. So if we go back down into the terminal, you'll see a few things. I'm going to actually scroll up a little bit and just read some of the stuff that happened here. It says Hytopia project initialized successfully. Start your development server by running the command Hytopia start. And then it says play your game by opening, and then it gives you a URL that you can copy. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this just so we have it. And then I'm going to scroll back down to where we are on our terminal, and I'm going to type in Hytopia start and hit enter. And this is going to start our server. So now it says that the server is running, and remember we copied that URL before. You can always scroll up and find it there. And I'm going to just go to my browser. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see our server loads. Now in your case, if you've never done this before, you might actually get a security error that will pop up. Don't panic, it's normal, and just follow the instructions exactly as they appear on the screen. You basically just have to tell your computer that it's safe to do this. So follow the instructions exactly as show up in that pop-up, refresh the page, and then you'll be fine. Okay, so now that the server is running, we can actually start making changes to our code, and anytime we save it, it's going to refresh the server and we'll be able to see our changes directly in the server. So with that done, you've installed everything you need to start making games in Hytopia, but it all still might feel a little bit overwhelming to you if you've never done any sort of coding or made any games before. So I'm gonna give you a few additional things to kind of chew on to help you on your journey. The first thing I'm gonna talk about is just some quick cursor tips. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just jump into the settings, and you can do that by hitting this cog wheel over here. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the models tab, and this is where you can turn on and off different models. So if you find you don't like certain ones or they're not working for you, you can kind of customize what you turn on and off in here. Another thing that I want to point out is the tools and integrations. This is where when we installed that Hytopia MCP server, you can see that it's enabled here. So if you're ever trying to use it and it's not working, you can always go to tools and integrations and make sure that it's on in there. And if it's not, you can try to reinstall it. Next up is rules and memories. And what I wanted to show you in here is these user rules. And these are just some custom rules that you can set that basically you can dictate how you want cursor to behave in every session. For me, I have some Hytopia specific things in here. So feel free to just make these whatever you want them to be. If you want it to always talk to you in an Irish accent or something like that, you could put silly stuff like that in there too. Next up on the left side, we've got indexing and docs. And in here, I just, if you scroll down, you'll notice that I have the Hytopia SDK developer docs and the Hytopia SDK API reference in here. And basically what I've done is I've taken that dev.hytopia.com website, copied the URL, and I've added it in as a doc. And I just paste the URL right here. And I did the same thing with the Hytopia API reference, which we'll talk about more in a second. But if you just go into the dev docs and you go to the API reference, there's a link to the API reference here, and then you can copy that. And again, we'll talk about that in just a second. All right, and that's it for settings. So when you're ready to be done, you can just hit this X and it'll close them out. The other thing I wanted to go over with cursor is just the different modes that you can operate in. So on this right-hand side of the screen, you'll see this AI section. If you don't have this, I'm going to close it out so you can see what it looks like without it. If you don't have it, you just go to View, Appearance, and there's a secondary sidebar that you can click and it'll show it there. So the important things to know over here are the different modes that you can run in. So you've got agent mode or ask mode, and then you have auto mode, or if you turn off auto mode, you can select which AI model you want to use. When auto mode is on, you have unlimited requests. However, cursor automatically chooses which model to use, and sometimes the model that it chooses doesn't give you what you're looking for. So auto mode is great for easy requests or even for attempting a solution to a problem. But if you're finding that you're not getting the results you need out of auto mode, you can flip it off and choose one of the better models. Obviously, GPT-5 is the newest one, and this is a great model. It works really, really well with Hytopia. I also like Claude Force on it, but you can go through here and choose a different model based on your needs. But I keep it in auto mode as much as I can, but don't be afraid to switch it off when your auto mode is just having a hard time finding the solution. And then over here, we've got agent mode and ask mode. Agent mode is what you want to use when you are coding and making code changes. It can create new files, it can edit multiple files, perform multiple step operations with just one prompt. And overall, it's just the better option for when you're coding, but it does use twice as many requests. So you don't necessarily want to use it when you're just asking simple questions. So if you just have a question about your code base, or you're trying to understand something, you can switch to ask mode and use only one request instead of two requests. So agent mode for coding, ask mode for asking questions, auto mode for everything unless it's struggling. If it's struggling, turn it off and pick one of the better models until it's solved your problem. Cursor will make a lot more sense as you get into it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and as you are going, just ask the AI questions, ask it to explain things to you, and then you'll start to find your own workflow that works for you. So that's a few things about Cursor that can help you get going, and then I just have a few other general tips to help your journey be a little bit easier, things that I've picked up along the way or learned. And the first thing I tell anyone who's looking to get into Hytopia game development is to take a beginner JavaScript course. For me, I did the Intro to JavaScript course in Solo Learn. It doesn't take long. I think I did 20 minutes a day for a week. And by doing that, I learned so much that helped me understand this process so much better than if I hadn't, that I can never not recommend taking that step. It's definitely worth the time investment. The second thing I recommend is to read the dev docs and the API reference. It is much easier to make a game on Hytopia and also to troubleshoot issues when you know what is possible and what things are actually called. Reading the dev docs and learning how to search in the API reference will make this significantly easier for you. The third tip is to use the Hytopia MCP server. AI coding is great, but the models are not trained on Hytopia. They're trained on, JavaScript and TypeScript and all these things, but they haven't been trained on Hytopia specifically. But the MCP server has, so when it's enabled, it allows the AI to pull from that pool of knowledge as well, which makes the code it writes a lot more accurate for Hytopia. So we enabled that when we initialized the file. We can always verify that it's running in settings, going to tools and integrations, and you can see Hytopia MCP is running. And we can see how this works right now. I'm just gonna say, please add a zombie entity into my game. And just to be sure it gets this one right for us, I'm just gonna, use Claude 4 and I'm gonna hit enter. All right, so now it's finished and let's just look at what it's done. And this is actually a really good example of why you need to be kind of specific in your prompting for cursor. So I said, please add a zombie entity into my game. Super vague. I didn't tell it what I wanted it to do, where I wanted it to spawn or anything. So I just gave it a super vague prompt and it used the Hytopia MCP to do what it thought I wanted. But as you can see, it's done it and there are no errors, right? So it called up a search, it looked through documentation, it read project files, and then it started getting to work and it created all this stuff for me. It created the zombie spawning logic, it created welcome messages, and then it checked for errors, which it had 10 errors at one point, but it went through and it fixed them all by searching again through Hytopia documentation, fixing the errors, and then on and on and on, and eventually it gives us our summary of what it did. So it added AI pathfinding, it added player targeting, collision damage, a health system, audio effects, all this stuff. And then it tells us how we can test it. So our game server is already running, and it says if I type /zombie, it'll spawn a zombie nearby. All right, so let's go to our server and let's see. So it says zombies will automatically spawn every 30 seconds. I'm gonna do /zombie like it says, and that should get us a zombie. Yep, and there it is, the zombie. So as you can see, even though it did way more than we asked it to do, it did successfully spawn zombies per the Hytopia SDK. Since it's written all this crazy code, it reminds me of another tip that I used a lot in the beginning, which was just asking the AI to explain things to me when I didn't understand it. So let's say I had no idea, what this section of the code did and why it added it. I can just highlight it and I can press Control-I to add it into a new chat. And then I can switch into ask mode and I can just say, please explain this section of code to me. And now you can see it's explained everything about this section of code. It tells me generally what it is. It appears to be a part of a zombie AI system in your game. Let's break down what's happening. And it tells you what a tick handler is. It tells you safety checks, timer management, target selection, and everything. So if you don't understand something, highlight it, Control-I, go into ask mode, and read the explanation. And then if you really want to level up your understanding of how Hytopia games are made and how the code works, I highly recommend checking out the example games. If you go to the dev website, you'll notice right here under general guides, the third one says using templates and examples. To start a new Hytopia project based on the examples repo, you can use Hytopia init and then with the -- template flag. So, and it also gives you a link to the example game. So I'm going to click this link and just take a look at the example games that we have. And some of these games are playable on Hytopia and you can actually see how they are. So Frontiers is playable, Hole in the Wall is playable, High Grounds is playable, Zombies FPS is playable, right? So if we go to hytopia.com, and let's take High Grounds as an example. So I can click on High Grounds and I can hit play now. All right, so we're in High Grounds, and let's say that inside of this game, there are some mechanics that I really like and I want to try to use in my game, or I want to just understand how they work. Well, we can actually load this game's code directly in and see how it works. I'm going to create a new project. So I'm going to go to my Hytopia folder where I keep projects. Actually have one for practice. So I'm going to call this High Grounds, and then I'm going to go into cursor and I'm going to go file, open folder, and I'm going to open the one I just made, High Grounds. Again, it's going to be empty. So I'm going to go to terminal, new terminal, and then down here I'm going to type Hytopia init and I'm going to do --template, and it's called High Grounds. You want to make sure you name this whatever it's named inside of the GitHub. So right here, it's called High Grounds. So you want to just make sure that you're initializing it based on the actual name. So Hytopia init --template, High Grounds. I'm going to hit enter. Once again, it's asking us if we want to initialize the MCP. We of course do. So I'm going to hit Y, and I'm going to hit 1 to say it's with cursor. This thing popped up, new MPC server detected. We're going to enable it. And then we have the code. So we have the same index.ts file, right, that we had in the other one. There's a lot of other files though in this project, right? There's a game config file. We've got this classes folder that has things for all the items in the game, has things for all the weapons in the game. So pulling up an example project like this can be really, really helpful for learning how larger games are made, how you can structure your files, and how you can implement different mechanics if you weren't sure how to do them. So you can see here, there's this file called item factory, and you're wondering, okay, well, what is the item factory? Well, again, you can just go to ask and say, please explain. And if you want to reference file inside of the chat, you just hit @ So we're going to say, please explain @ and we're going to say item factory to me. And I'm just going to go to auto mode for this, and I'm going to hit enter. So it says, looking at your item factory.ts file, this is a factory class that creates different types of game items. Let me break down how it works. So it tells you the purpose of it, tells you how it works, and it tells you, why we're using this pattern for this game. So definitely recommend doing this as well. Rather than just jumping straight into making games, the more you understand about how the whole process works, the easier it will be for you to plan your game, easier it will be for you to prompt well as you're making your game, and the easier it will be for you to troubleshoot. All right, so I know this has been a lot for today, so we're going to stop here. My next set of videos is going to be a full tutorial series, just going through making a simple Hytopia game from scratch, start to finish. But before you watch those, definitely run through some of these tips that I've given you. Take a short intro to JavaScript course, read through the dev docs, look at some example games, and if you do all those things, you'll be in really good shape to start making your first game. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, if you want to stay up to date on all the latest Hytopia news, be sure to subscribe to this channel, and if you do, I will see you in the next one.